So 3 months ago I had a seminar. My group had to show the progress on the ML model we were building. I had the base of the model coded, it was incomplete and it was full of bugs. But between my internship and everything else going on, I just hadn't had the time to fix it, and the seminar crept upon me faster than I expected. The morning of the seminar, I had nothing to show. I'm on my way to college, my group members were blowing up my phone. They were panicking, which in turn made me panic more. When I was sitting in the bus, running through every possible excuses I could give to the teacher, I just out of desperation opened up Claude on my phone. I typed out what the model needed to do and sent it. 2 minutes later, I had a full working ML model in my hands, complete, clean, and it was ready to run. I walked into the classroom, opened up my laptop, imported the model, and I'm standing there in front of the room. The teachers were irritated. The group members were staring at me, and the model just worked perfectly. I gave the seminar, it went great, but after everyone left, I just sat there and I had one question that I could not shake. I had spent months on that model, the late nights, the debugging, the money on courses and resources, the effort, and AI sitting on my phone did it better than me in 2 minutes. So genuinely, why should I grind for a tech job if AI can just do the job better than me? That question sat with me for weeks, and what I found when I actually went looking for the answer, that's what this video is about. Because here's the truth, what happened to me, that's not a one-off story. That is now the baseline. That is just what AI can do. Companies are doing layoffs right now, not because they are struggling, but because they realize they need fewer developers to ship the same amount of software. A senior developer with AI is now doing the work of 3 junior developers. AI has read every Stack Overflow answers ever written, every GitHub repo, every documentation page, every design pattern. AI doesn't get tired. It does not have an off day. It does not need to Google syntax. If your job is to translate requirements into code, AI does that faster and cheaper than you ever will. I'm not trying to be harsh here. I'm trying to be honest with you before you spend 4 years going down a path that leads nowhere. But here's what nobody is actually talking about. There is an entire class of engineering work where writing the code is the easy part, where AI being good at syntax doesn't matter because the hard problem was never the code. Let me explain what I mean. Think about the real system, not a tutorial project but a real one. A company wants to monitor 400 machines across 3 factory floors. Sensor data coming in from every machine, temperature, vibration, pressure, all of it streaming in real time. They want anomaly detection, they want alerts, they want a dashboard, they want the data stored, queryable and compliant with industry safety regulations. Now go and ask AI to build that. It will write you code. But who decides how the data flows from one system to the next? Who decides where you use a message queue or a streaming pipeline? Who decides where you put the intelligence based on the latency requirement, bandwidth cost, and what happens when the internet goes down? Who architects the entire thing? And if something breaks at 2 AM, who has the mental model of the entire system to know exactly where to look? That person cannot be replaced by a prompt. That person is a systems engineer. Systems architecture is about making decisions with incomplete information and real consequences. When you are designing a data pipeline, you are not asking does this code run. You are asking what happens when a node fails. What happens in 3 years when the data volume doubles. You are designing for failure models that haven't happened yet. AI can suggest patterns, but it cannot carry the responsibility of the decision. Cybersecurity at the system level is the same thing. Securing a network isn't running a tool. It's threat modeling, thinking like an attacker, finding the gaps before someone else does, knowing which attack surface exists in your specific architecture, and making trade-offs between security and usability that a business can actually live with. That requires context, judgment, and accountability. 3 things AI fundamentally doesn't have. And as AI makes it easier to write code, it also makes it easier to write malicious code. What all of these roles share is the value isn't in the code they write, it's in the calls they make. And here's something more important. AI doesn't threaten these roles, it actually makes people in them more powerful. A cloud architect with AI can prototype infrastructure faster. A security engineer with AI can scan for vulnerabilities at a scale that was impossible before. A system architect with AI can model failure scenarios in hours instead of days. Think about Tony Stark and Jarvis. Jarvis was arguably the most advanced AI ever depicted in fiction. It could run diagnostic, model simulations, simulation, control entire systems, execute complex calculation in seconds. By any measure, Jarvis could outperform Tony Stark, but Tony was never replaceable because Jarvis didn't decide to build the Iron Man suit. Tony did. Jarvis didn't look at a dying world and ask what problem needs solving right now. Tony did. Jarvis didn't make the call to fly a nuclear weapon through a wormhole. Tony did. Jarvis made Tony Stark the most productive engineer on the planet, but only because Tony had the systems thinking, the creative vision, the human heart, and the judgment to point that power at the right problems. Without Tony, Jarvis was just a very sophisticated tool waiting for a direction. That's exactly the relationship between AI and a systems engineer, a cloud architect, and a security professional today. AI is your Jarvis. It executes faster than you ever could, but it needs someone who understands the full system, carries the accountability for the decision, and knows what exactly needs to be built. That Tony Stark is you, if you are building toward the right skill. So the question isn't whether to learn to code, the question is what level of the stacks you are aiming for. If you are aiming to write just code for the rest of your career, that's the lane that's closing. But if you are building towards system thinking, architecture, security, infrastructure, that's the lane that AI is actively widening, because the better AI gets at execution, the more valuable human judgment becomes at the design level.